चन्द्राय चैतन्यचन्द्राय नमो नमस्ते। जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद, जय अद्वैत चंद्र जय गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna everyone. So we'll continue to read the next paragraph where we stopped. The stool. So yesterday we saw the four types of methods, techniques of understanding something or acquiring knowledge. So there is direct understanding, hypothetical understanding, historical understanding, and understanding through sound. And traditional Vedic students, they accept that the understanding through sound is the best method. The stool and bone of any living entity are considered to be impure according to the Vedic literature. Yet, the same Vedic literature asserts that cow dung and conch shells are very pure. Apparently, these statements are contradictory because they are saying that stool and bone of any living entity should be considered impure. But that same Vedic literature asserts the point that cow dung is pure. Conch shells, they are very pure. Apparently, these statements may seem contradictory, but because cow dung and conch shells are considered pure by the Vedas, they are accepted as pure by the followers of the Vedas without argument. So, if somebody follows the Vedas, then without argument, they will accept that cow dung is also pure, conch shell is also pure. If somebody is not a follower of the Vedas, then they may argue that is different. If we try to understand the statements by indirect interpretation, creating some hypothesis, then we challenge the evidential authority of the Vedic statements. In other words, Vedic statements cannot be accepted according to our imperfect interpretations. They must be accepted as they are. If they are not accepted in this way, there is no authority in the Vedic statements. With our imperfect interpretations, if we try to um, make decisions whether the Vedic statements are correct or not, then that means we do not have faith in them. We have imperfect senses, and therefore our interpretations will also be imperfect. If something is mentioned, that is the authority of the Vedic statements. So therefore, if something is mentioned in the Vedas, we accept it as it is. There is no need of any kind of interpretation. Direct interpretation is whatever is mentioned, we take it as it is. And anything that is indirect is imperfect. According to Lord Chaitanya, those who try to give some personal interpretation of Vedic statements are not at all intelligent. They mislead their followers by inventing their own interpretations. In India, there is a class of men known as Arya Samajists, Arya Samaj, who say that they accept the original Vedas only and reject all other Vedic literature. The motive of these people, however, is to give their own interpretation. I've seen this Arya Samaj is in Gujarat. I've come across. So at that time, I was in school and I was small and I did not understand. So now, when I read, of course, I've read teachings of Lord Chaitanya earlier as well. But now, when I'm reading with all of you again, so all these things, I'm being reminded that I've heard of Arya Samaj people. Now they say that they accept the original Vedas only and they reject all other Vedic literature. But the motive of these people, however, is to give their own interpretation. According to Lord Chaitanya, such interpretations are not to be accepted. They are simply not Vedic. They are anything but Vedic. Lord Chaitanya said that the Vedic statements of the Upanishads are like sunlight. Everything is clear and very distinct when it is seen in the sunlight. The statements of the Vedas are similarly clear and distinct. The Mayavadi philosophers simply cover the sunlight with the cloud of their misinterpretation. It is not even interpretation, it is misinterpretation. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then said that all the Vedic statements of the Upanishads aim at the ultimate truth known as Brahman. The word Brahman means the greatest, and the greatest should immediately be understood to refer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the source of all emanations. Unless the greatest possesses all the six opulences in full, he cannot be called the greatest. The greatest is therefore the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, the Supreme Brahman is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Bhagavad Gita 10.12, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is accepted by Arjuna as the Supreme Brahman. The conceptions of the impersonal Brahman and the localized Super Soul are contained within the understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, in the Bhagavan realization, the Paramatma realization, the Brahman realization, and Paramatma realization, they're already inclusive. Whenever we speak of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we add the words Shri. Shri Bhagavan Vacha, indicating that he is full with six opulences. This means that he is eternally a person. If he were not a person, the six opulences could not be present in fullness. Therefore, whenever it is said that the supreme absolute truth is impersonal, what is meant is that his personality is not material. To distinguish his transcendental body from all the other material bodies, some philosophers have explained him as having no material personality. No material personality. He has a transcendental personality. In other words, his material personality is denied. It is not that he doesn't have a personality, but the material personality is denied. But his spiritual personality is established. In the Shvetashvatara Upanishad 3.19, this is clearly explained. Apanipado javano grahita pashyatya chakshu sashrinotya karnaha savitti vedyam nachatasyasti vetta tam ahur agram purusham mahantam. The absolute truth has no material legs and hands, but he has spiritual hands by which he accepts everything offered to him. When Krishna is offered bhoga, we do not see Krishna's hands and we do not see Krishna eating because he doesn't have material legs and hands like us. If some material person has to eat, he has to put his hand in front and then he has to eat, put it in his mouth, chew, and then he has to swallow it. Without doing all these actions, that food from the plate cannot go into his stomach. It's not possible only. But because Krishna's body is not material, and he has transcendental spiritual hands and spiritual form and everything is spiritual, therefore even through his glands he can accept. So therefore whenever we offer the bhoga, Krishna doesn't need anything. Krishna is Atmaram. Mahaprabhu is explaining the Atmaram verse. Krishna doesn't need anything, he's self-satisfied. But what does he accept when we offer the bhoga? He accepts the love and devotion. Whatever services we do, Krishna accepts the love and devotion. But does that mean he doesn't eat? If there is love and devotion, that means Krishna eats what we have offered him. Krishna glances at it and everything is eaten by him. And then again he fills that plate as it is so that we see that everything is as it is. I had offered like this only, nothing has changed. But sometimes for some dear devotees, for the pleasure of the devotees, Krishna may give some reciprocation. Okay, sometimes devotees do see that okay, they have offered something and it is little bit eaten. Rasgulla offered and it is half eaten, or some pastry has been offered and it is, and there are bites of little teeth there. You can see tooth marks. So some devotees they have such experiences. So Krishna eats, but we cannot see because we have not been purified. And some devotees who have um so this kirtan that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. In that, the next verse, Gopi Jana. No, not this time. But anyways, I will sing the all. It just has 4 lines, so let me sing all the 4 lines. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Now this line, Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana. Who is Yashodanandana? Nandana means the son, the dear beloved son of Mother Yashoda, and that is Krishna. Krishna is Vraja Jana Ranjana. Ranjana means one pleasure. Ranjana is pleasure. Vraja Jana Ranjana means one who gives pleasure to the Vraja Jan, the people of the Vrajadham. Now, does that mean anybody who lives in Vrajadham physically, only they are Vrajavasis? No. Anybody who carries the mood of the Vrajavasis. Now, Vrajavasis is not, we are not simply talking about the physically what we see that okay, everybody now we may see that there are many people in Vrajadham. We may feel that okay, they are taking gutkha or they are maybe speaking rudely, whatever. We should try not to see fault in the Vrajavasis, no matter what they are doing, because if they are Vrajavasis, that means they are dear to Krishna. Therefore, we should be very careful that we don't find faults in them. But here, what I'm trying to say is Vrajavasis mean we are talking of the original Vrajavasis when Krishna was present. So original Vrajavasis, like the gopis, the gopas, everyone. So if somebody has that mood, what is that mood? The mood of these Vrajavasis are they are most simple and they love Krishna beyond any love cannot be compared with anything. They have no envy. There is spiritual competition. Spiritual competition means that if somebody is giving pleasure to Krishna, others don't feel jealous. If Krishna is appreciating someone, others will not feel jealous. But spiritual competition is that okay, now let us try to give more pleasure to Krishna. But that doesn't mean that let us put somebody else down. And they are very loving to each other also. Because everybody is dear to Krishna, therefore everybody is dear to each other. Because Krishna is dear to them. That is the Vrajadham mood. And if somebody has that kind of mood, then for such a devotee, Krishna becomes the pleasure giver to such a devotee. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. So in that case, Krishna may reciprocate that when the bhoga is offered, when the devotee comes to take the plate, they may see some reciprocations. But Krishna has no material eyes. Krishna has no material hands and legs. Therefore, with our own material eyes, because everything about us is material, therefore, with our material eyes, with our material intelligence, we cannot understand, we cannot see Krishna. But Krishna is very much present right here, right now. Krishna is present in every atom. There is nowhere where Krishna is not present. But are we able to see him? No, it is because of our impurity. He has no material ears, but he can hear everything and anything with his spiritual ears. So Krishna is also listening everything. Having perfect senses, he knows the past, future, and the present. Indeed, he knows everything. Therefore, he is called Avidya. But no one can understand him, for by material senses he cannot be understood. Being the origin of all the emanations, he is the supreme, he is the greatest, the personality of Godhead. So with that, we will pause here for today. And Krishna willing, we'll again continue reading tomorrow. Thank you very much for association. वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य च पतितनां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्रीमद श्रीला जय पताका स्वामी गुरु महाराज की जय। जगत श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय। जय गुरु आनंद हरि हरि बोल।